castle goring from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, again, an awful lot of ground to cover. So without further ado, I'm just gonna plunge right in. If Madam will be gracious enough to allow me to do so. And for those of you who think that she likes the makeup on my neck, I don't wear makeup on my neck. Okay? So I think she just likes my neck. She also likes my feet, my hands, and everywhere else. She's just a loving babysita. Okay? So, Mary Layman says, Lady C, could King Charles issue new letters patent stipulating that the grandchildren of a sovereign are not eligible for a title unless they live in Great Britain, full-time, year-round? Could he also say that ineligible grandchildren of the sovereign can become eligible when they turn 21, if, big if, he or she moves to Great Britain and becomes a full-time working royal and has the consent to do so from each and every current working royal? Carol in Houston. Carol in Houston? I thought it said Mary Layman. Oh dear, I'm getting confused. Anyway, Mary Layman, Carol in Houston. Interesting point. Oh, there are one or two things that I will pick you up on. First of all, no sovereign in his right mind would issue letters patent requiring the consent of each and every current working royal. The sovereign is the fount of all honours, and it is a fount that he should guard jealously. So that is a prospect that wouldn't even begin to exist unless we were dealing with a true lunatic, which fortunately King Charles is not. It's a good idea that they issue letters patent. Oh, but the letters patent could be very simple. Oh, but they're not even necessary, actually, because King George V didn't need to issue letters patent when he forbade Princess Maud from using her princely title. He simply ordered her to stop using it. And although she retained princely rank, thereafter she was simply known as Lady South-esque until she became the Duchess of Fife, at which point she was known as the Duchess of Fife. Having said all of that, people did privately call her Princess Maud because they had been used to calling her Princess Maud. And at the coronations and other state events, she wore the robes of a princess. So there is a precedent already. You don't need the letters patent. But, I mean, Charles can simply give an order in council stating that any royal highness or member of the royal family with a princely rank who is not residing in this country permanently or is not being brought up in this country is not allowed to use the title. He doesn't even need to do any of that. He can just simply do what the Queen did and what King George V did. He simply makes the statement. He declares this is what's going to happen and they have to obey. So, I personally think it would be insanity to allow children who were brought up in America, who had no idea of how the monarchy works because of their troubled parents' past, who were prevented from being a viable members of the royal family, from then at the age of 18 or 21 pitching up and deciding, yeah, I'm going to join. I mean, that's like Meghan, yeah, it's an act. It's not an act. You are not acting. It is a lifetime's training. In fact, some people would say it's several generations training. I hope I make that clear, because it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not possible that it is going to be able to happen if Archie and Lilibet are in America and they are living in America, and then all of a sudden they're coming over here. How are they going to know? I mean, one of the problems with Meghan is that she has no idea of what the culture of this country is. And how's she going to know it? And how would those children know it? Especially brought up in that maelstrom of craziness. I don't think so. I don't think it would work. I really don't. Janet Huff says, Dear Lady C, can you please illuminate on a report that I have read recently stating that the late Majesty was wanting the title of princess on the Princess Royal's daughter Zara's bestowed upon her? As a loyal, loving, trustworthy member of the family to her uncle the king, I think this would be a wonderful gesture from the king and help cement the firm foundations for a strong alliance for the monarchy. Janet Huff, that's a very nice idea. Zara Tindall and Peter Phillips have been well brought up. There are precedents for non-royal members of the family, which they are, and which Princess Maud and Princess Alexandra were. That's right, they were non-royal until they were made royal by their grandfather, King Edward VII. Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall are not royal. They are members of the extended royal family, but they're not royal. Like Lady Alexandra Carnegie and Lady Maud Carnegie, who became Princess Alexandra and Princess Maud of Fife, they can become Zara and Peter. They could become princes and princesses. It only takes the stroke of a pen. Would it be a good thing? It certainly would cause complications at this point. In some ways, it would be a very positive thing, because it would show that the female line is now equal to the male line, and therefore Princess Anne's children could be elevated. But are they going to be elevated to princely rank at the same time that Harry and Meghan's children are going to be kept out of the princely fold? I think it would be very, very injudicious at this point, although each course of action has its merits. But it would be giving a dagger to the illiberal neo-Puritans who support Meghan and Harry and their nonsense. Of course, it would also at the same time highlight the fact that those who behave well get a reward and those who behave badly don't. And that if you're going to have your children brought up as Hollywood D-list celebrities instead of royal A-list aristocrats, there's a price to pay. So I think it's a good idea, but I think I would actually have the courage to do it. I'm not sure the king will have the recklessness to do it. Let me put it that way. But then I've learned one thing in life. Too much caution is a bad thing. You should be careful and you should be courageous at the same time. And you should make a point of taking a stand that is morally and ethically defensible, and take it firmly and proudly. But then again, it's easy for me to speak. I'm just me. I'm not the king. And little me and my little domain bears no relationship whatsoever to the British monarchy. Really, think of it. You know, little me, little castle goring, my little children, my little doggy woggies and kitties, my little small time operations, nothing compared to a mighty monarchy. Carol Lane says, what was the outcome of the note that Markle sent the king? Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, as we all know, Meghan and Harry's people briefed various publications, including Hello, that they've left the country. They briefed other people that they didn't leave the country. And they've even tried to plant the story, I am told, that they were asked to and went up to Balmoral. Yes, that's right. They've deliberately kept their travel arrangements secret. You notice nobody saw them leave, nobody saw them arrive. That proves they can be secretive when they want to be. Much the same way that they went from Canada to the United States, nobody knew. They went from California to Miami for him to give that speech on, oh, how much I have suffered as a prince, for which I was paid $1 million. Yeah, that was secretive. So when they want to keep a secret, they can keep it. And the whole thing evidently is shrouded in mystery. And they have, I am told, been trying, or people on their behalf, I should say, have been trying to plant the story that they went to Balmoral and that they've stayed in the country. Well, of course, they can play it any way they want, and they always do play it any way they want. You know, we headed north, we headed south, we headed east, we headed west. Whatever plays well that minute is what happens. The outcome of the notes that she sent, let's wait and see what their statement is. Because I want to be very careful what I say. Because I don't want to drop anybody in it. And I am not assisting Harry and Meghan in their maneuverings and manipulations, nor am I assisting their henchmen and their propagandists. But I would say the king would be very ill-advised. And the Queen Camilla, is sufficiently astute to know that you need to be very careful what concessions you give to people who are intent on undermining your interests. I mean, Camilla has had a really hard time. She has been pilloried in a way that Meghan never has been, and she wasn't pilloried fairly either. Well, the little bit of flack that Meghan has got over the years has been more than richly deserved. Debbie Valenta says, "Dear Lady C, as always, you don't disappoint with your elegance and insightful commentary. Thank you so much. I must ask, what are your thoughts on the excerpts of Valentine Low's new book, In the Times? As an American who has worked in film production in Hollywood with other actresses of Meghan's ilk, I must say I have no problem believing much of what he wrote." Debbie Valenta, sorry. Aurora has just come and disrupted the cushion, so I'm just going to settle it and settle her. I have no doubt that the book is completely accurate. I would recommend that everybody who has an interest in this subject buys that book. All of you, buy it. That would be my recommendation. I have read the excerpts. I know some of what has gone on behind the scenes as well. And there is little doubt in my mind that it is a sterling work, accurately reported, and he has impeccable sources. I think more than that I need not say. I'm certainly going to be buying the book, and I'm certainly reading the excerpts. What it is, says, "Dear Lady C, with all those exposing Megsy books parading out one by one, plus King Charles refusing to meet Miss mega desperation for negotiation, plus Prince William ignoring her charm at the walkabout. I wonder if there's any china left in the dish cabinet in Montechet show." Oh dear, you are funny. I'm not sure there was ever china in the first place. That crass-looking mug that I saw didn't strike me as fine-bone china. It struck me as a very poor imitation of what China should be. And what can I say? Do we think that there is frustration? I know there's frustration. I need to be careful what I say, but I know there's lots of frustration. Lots. And I can't, I haven't finished reading the question yet. What do you think will be her next move on the checkers board? Clearly chess is not her thing. More manipulation, more calculation, more deliberation, more titivation, and more exploration of alternative versions of the truth. The Meghans of this world are like the sea. They are relentless. Meghan's been accused by people at the palace who worked with her of being a narcissistic sociopath. Sociopaths never back down unless they absolutely have to. And even then, it's never a backing down, it is merely a temporary tactical retreat. R. Omar says, "Hello, Lady C. There's a sense of schadenfreude in the air following the antics of the hustler and her doofus being laid bare by Valentine Low in his upcoming book. We know that the litigious Bonnie and Clyde would be on the blower to their lawyers, spitting bullets and instructing them to counter-strike, because we saw Jenny Afia redefining the meaning of the word bullying at the beginning of this year, when the bullying of staff was first exposed, and she compared it condescendingly to what her 7-year-old daughter would accuse her of when asked to brush her teeth. Will they sue Mr. Low? So far, they didn't sue you. They didn't, as far as we know, sue Mr. Bower. So who knows? Will they take a gamble and blow the rest of Harry's inheritance on a lawsuit against Mr. Low? Rachel Zane, slap him once, slap him twice. Super duper caped paralegal superhero is already in court for assault, libel, and slander in a case filed by Samantha Markle. And we wish Sam all the best. The gloves are off, and King Charles isn't going to protect the pair any longer. And we're hoping that truth and justice will shine brighter than the lies the pairs are shoving down people's throats. Much love to you and your family." Well, very good question. There is a sense of schadenfreude. Or to put it another way, the chickens are coming home to roost. I have to tell you, I am really proud of my contribution to this whole situation. I am really proud of it. You have no idea some of what went on behind the scenes when I was writing my book. And I can't go into some of it. In fact, I can't go into most of it. And I am delighted to see that Tom Bower and Valentine Low and Katie Nicholl, to an extent, have waded in, adding to the dossier of knowledge about that two-bit hustler and her lackey, lapdog. I don't think they will sue. I think they know only too well that Valentine Low's information came from people within the palace as a result of their appallingly bad behaviour, their bullying of the staff, their relentless abuse of their position, and advantage taking of people whom they regarded as their inferiors. As The previous lady said about having worked with people in Hollywood and seen how they behave, and she finds it believable. I can tell you something. Most staff hate working for arrivistes because they treat them like mud compared to the people from the ancien regime. And Harry has no right to be going along with any of this because he knows better. And so there's no excuse for him. There's no excuse for her either. Because just because she's a hurry come up arriviste doesn't mean that she wasn't brought up to have good manners. Because her father brought her up to have good manners. Her sister Samantha has beautiful manners. Her father has beautiful manners. I know from people who've known her all her life, she was brought up to have good manners. She never dumped on people from a great height until she became successful. And you know, success doesn't suit everybody, and it certainly doesn't suit her. Let her sue. That's all I could say. Me? I would welcome a lawsuit. Welcome a writ. Ms. Beaverhausen says, Dear Lady C, I have reread the Real Diana and have come to the conclusion that the overseas in-law has also read it, studied it, and employed the same manipulative tactics that Diana used to trap their prince and get as much as they could out of the royal family. Both women pretended to have common interests with their future husbands, only to abandon them once the wedding was done. Diana claimed to love Balmoral and toil, which I think means the overseas in-law, claimed to have a passion for Africa. Didn't she show the passion that she had? Gosh, all you dinky little South Africans. I don't even bother to sympathize with you because my suffering is greater than yours. What's this about you needing to survive? I need to thrive. I mean, I'm important. You're just, well, just what you are. Not even bearing thinking about me. But then, why would I have respect for you when I don't even have respect for the Queen? Sorry, to continue. Like Diana, toil also ensured that her husband's friends were eliminated from their life. Diana did it out of childish jealousy, while toil did it to control number 5. Both had fractious relationships with their families, although Diana was not as nasty as toil. Like Diana, toil has no issue with cutting relationships when they are no longer agreeable, although Diana was able to reconnect with friends. Both women expected people to do their bidding for free, and again, Diana was not as gauche as toil in this regard. Both women expected to have a half-in, half-out arrangement with the royal family. Luckily, Prince Philip put his foot down with Diana and saw right through toil. Finally, I also noticed the use of the phrase olive branch was employed on a few occasions in your book. And this seems to be amid Scabies' go-to phrase when he is issuing Sussex propaganda. I'm so glad I reread The Real Diana and highly recommend others to read it as well. It really is astounding how much toil lifted from the pages of your masterful book. Oh, thank you for your kind words. I have been reliably informed that she has used the Real Diana as a roadmap. And if she hasn't, the coincidences are so freaky as to prove her point that she's Diana, born again, even though she was born while Diana was still alive. So quite how that would work in terms of reincarnation, I don't know. But with her logic never ever needs to enter the picture. Certainly, Diana blackmailed Charles and the royal family into a decent divorce settlement. She used the very disturbed ravings of George Smith to get £17 million out of Prince Charles, failing which she was going to use George Smith's accusations to tarnish her husband's name. Diana knew how to play dirty. Diana also leaked the business about her title, and Meghan and Harry have replicated a lot of Diana's modus operandi. So yes, I have been told that Meghan has used the Real Diana, that she studied it and she has used it as a roadmap and a replicate of what she needs to do. So, what can I say? I haven't read the book since I wrote it. Oh, no, that's not true. I updated the sources in 2004 because when it was published first in America in 1998, the protocol was that you didn't name your sources. And by the time I was ready for it to be published in the United Kingdom, the protocol had changed and one was able to insert one's sources. And people who had spoken to me would no longer suffer from ostracism. So my sources were inserted in the British edition, not the American edition. So I had to reread it in 2004. But that's an awfully long time, I have to tell you. I remember the basics, but I certainly don't remember the minutiae. Minky Cat says, I honestly believe, knowing Meghalaya never was read your book, The Real Diana, she has been trying to emulate her, the interview, the accusations, etc., etc. She really is crazy. I think she definitely is functioning on another plane. Let me put it that way. You know, I used to say about my mother when people said she's mad. I used to say whenever somebody who is ostensibly mad behaves in such a way that they're always shafting you and never themselves, that's bad. That's not mad. Madness is when you shaft yourself. Badness is when you shaft everybody else. I know things about Meghan Markle that would make your hair stand on end. You think you know things? You know very little. There's an awful lot more to come out. To the extent that she has thought that she could get away with all she has done and suffer no consequences, that is a form of madness. Some of what she does is, in my opinion, a form of madness. But the rest of it, I shudder to look into a soul like that. Rosemary's Baby would look like John the Baptist compared to her. Michelle Fournillier says, yes, it's very painful and tragic indeed to see your well-brought-up family member part from what is supposed to be normal etiquette based on their family's values and upbringing and stoop to a level of disgrace instead of correcting their spouse. It's like they become someone else as they drank from that well and they disregard all that they held dear and reject the hands that fed them. I'm speaking of my personal experience with a family member. Trust is very hard to re-establish in those instances, particularly when it becomes evident that your family member has turned into a parasite. Michelle Fournillier, I identify. You know, had I not had to write Daughter of Narcissus, I would never have had the handle on my mother's conduct and character that I ended up having. Writing it down was very illuminating. When I look back now at my relationship with my mother, I can see that she killed our relationship when I was 22 and she tried to burn me on my face. I didn't realize that the relationship was dead. But to put it another way, that anything trustworthy and nurturing had died. I didn't realize it. And I kept on going back. For instance, after my mother, when her sister died, and she knew that her sister had left my sisters and me all her money, and Mummy wanted to get her hands on the money. I don't think she really needed the money. She certainly didn't need it as much as I and my little sister needed it. But she wanted to get her hands on it because it was there, and it was her sister. And why shouldn't she jump to the front of the queue? Why shouldn't she do a Holly Willoughby and a Philip Schofield and just cut out all those ordinary little people like her daughters? Or as Philip and Schofield and Holly Willoughby cut out just the queuing public. And it has taken me years since she died to realize how stupid I was to keep on giving her chances, and how stupid it was each time to think what happened in the past will never happen again, because there is a degree of inevitability. As Heraclitus said, character is destiny. But when you are in the situation, if you are not a ruthless, nasty piece of work, you stupidly give the person the benefit of the doubt, and they use your hope, your natural hope, that things will improve and that they will have learned a lesson. But the lesson they learn is that you're a dupe and you're a fool, and that you're easy pickings. People like that need to be kept very firmly in their box if you have to deal with them at all. Sandra Howe says, Lady C, love your videos. I heard something the other day that may fill in the gaps with age. Often when you experience a very traumatic experience at a young age, you tend to stay, big block capitals, at that age, and your actions and attitudes prove it. Even the way H sits with his foot one behind the other, like a 12-year-old. What are your thoughts? I think there may be something to it. He now needs someone to help him with everything in his life and lead him day by day. Hence the dreaded Meghan. I think that's a very good observation. It's called arrested development. And yes, it is possible, it might even be likely, that he suffers from arrested development. Arrested development combined with, shall we say, academic challenges, combined with being spoilt, combined with a very great opinion of your own worth, is a recipe, as we can now see, for disaster. I think that Harry is the sort of man who would have been made or ruined by his wife. You know, Prince Bertie, who became the Duke of York, who then became King George VI, Queen Elizabeth II's father, was also that sort of man, somebody who would be made or ruined by his wife. But he was decent, and he was properly brought up. In fact, too rigidly brought up. Harry wasn't rigidly enough brought up. Harry has been ruined. I don't see a way back. You can't unsee all the things that you have seen. You know, they have shown us what they are. And we have come to our conclusions based upon their words and their deeds. Molly T says, you said if you knew about the Queen's condition, then surely Harry did. But I could see them not telling him because they couldn't trust him not to tell the world. Now he should have known, just by looking at her, how frail she was. And the mere fact of her age should have had him wanting to see her. I used to love Harry, but now I don't feel sorry for him at all. You reap what you sow. Yes, and whether you are approaching 40 and you have the arrested development of a 12-year-old due to trauma, or you're just a nasty piece of work, or you're so dumb that you're allowing Iago to drop poison in your air, and that you're then going to end up destroying your life the way Othello destroyed his when he murdered Desdemona. The fact of the matter is, Harry is approaching 40 and is an adult, and he needs to assume responsibility for his actions and his development and his potential. You can't spend your whole life blaming everybody else and everything else. I mean, with due respect, Harry had traumas in his life, but none as severe as the traumas that I had in my life, or my brother and sisters had in our lives. And we didn't turn out the way he did. So I'm afraid trauma is not a very good excuse. Nor is having a parent or parents who set you a bad example. You can learn from them what not to be. But yes, I see what you're saying, that it is quite possible that the family didn't tell Harry exactly what his grandmother was suffering from, knowing that he and Meghan would have utilized it, weaponized it to their full advantage. That's a possibility. But neither of them is so dumb that they couldn't see that she was dying, visibly fading in front of their eyes, in front of the eyes of the world. If you could see it, Molly T, and you didn't even know the Queen, of course Harry and Meghan saw it as well. You know, let me put it this way. Meghan is a specialist in lying to herself and self-hypnotizing by her own account and admission. You know, remember, if you don't like the truth, just come up with a new truth. And we are the stories we tell ourselves, and we are the stories we create for ourselves. I mean, all of that is basically saying she's a fantasist who purveys the fantasy as fact. And that if you don't like the truth, just change it. Well, I would have put it this way. The determination to embrace a false narrative is not only a form of insanity, but the embodiment of destructiveness, and in religious terms, the evocation of evil. We don't need to cut Harry and Meghan any slack for failing to do the decent thing when they knew his grandmother was fading. And if they didn't know the details, it's their own fault, because they had shown themselves to be untrustworthy and nobody could trust them with the information. That's a damning indictment. Damning indictment that goes right to the heart of their existence as human beings. And the lack of trust is based upon the lack of trustworthiness that they have shown, not only to their families, but to the world at large. Jackie LeBlanc says, question, was Harry supposed to go on the flight with William, Andrew, Edward, etc., but was in a dispute about Meghan coming, which caused a delay, and then they decided to board without him and missed her death? Well, yes, the others boarded without Harry. There was no prospect, however, of any of them making it in time to say goodbye to the Queen while she was alive and compos mentis. The flight left at 2 p.m. and she died at 2:37. That says it all. Laura Marie says, my heart broke for the Queen when all of her loved ones didn't make it for her last breath. Well, many of her loved ones didn't make it because she had an episode in the morning which quickly was apparent was terminal, and that there was going to be no recovery from what had happened. But she had some of her loved ones there because The present king and the present queen were there. Princess Anne and her husband were there as well. So she had two of her children with her when she died and as she was dying. And you know, I remember when my brother was dying and had lapsed into unconsciousness, the doctor saying, you can speak to him because sometimes the last faculty to go is hearing. And when my old boyfriend, Michael Lambert, was dying of cancer, and I went and saw him on the day before he died, and he was already comatose, I held his hand and I said, and we had humor in common, and we were still such good friends that I was his executrix. And anyway, I was holding his hand and I said, you know, Michael, you really are just too much. You're such a dramatist. I mean, if you weren't dying, I'd kill you. He squeezed my hand. He got the joke. He couldn't speak. He couldn't open his eyes or anything, but he squeezed my hand. So, who knows to what extent, but the ones who were present, these things are never quite as cut and dried as one would like them to be, but we can with certainty say the Queen died peacefully, surrounded by those of the loved ones who made it, which is quite different from the way her father died. Her father died on his own early in the morning. Her mother died with her and her niece, Margaret Rhodes, present. So, but the Queen's grandfather died horrendously because King George V, his dying words were, God damn you, to Lord Dawson, his doctor, as he plunged a needle full of morphine and cocaine into his jugular to kill him. George V knew Lord Dawson was killing him. Horrendous to think about it. And in so doing, he didn't euthanize him. He deprived him of any possibility of recovering, because I think it was 8 years before, George V had nearly died and had survived. And that was a horrendous experience for any human being, to know that his dying moments are to realize that the doctor he trusted was killing him. Horrendous. Jody Wade says, hello, Lady C. Love watching your videos. Thank you. You give all your information in a very dignified, very well researched and unbiased way. I hope so. You are the epitome of class and integrity and should give lessons to migraine and has-been. I wouldn't, my dear, never throw pearls to swine. Jesus Christ said it, and he knows more than I do. Never throw pearls to swine. They crush them underfoot. Those are two that I wouldn't give anything to, and certainly not lessons. If you please, give your opinion on when you think Has-Been will release his trash rag of a book. I have heard by the end of the year or in the spring. My guess is that if it is delayed beyond this year, he will make sure it is released right around the same time as King Charles III coronation. Your thoughts? Jody Wade, first of all, an author doesn't have a full say in when a book is going to be published. The publishers have the final word. There is a lot of talk that Harry's book needs to be rewritten in part because of the late Queen's death and some of the things that have been said and the reactions to the late Queen's death and the scurrility with which Harry and Meghan's conduct has been viewed. There's also the possibility, which seems to have not occurred to anybody, that he's going to put the boot in even more firmly. I sincerely hope not. I would have hoped that Harry and Meghan would have finally learnt one lesson, if none other, that despite their folie de grandeur and their delusions as to how important and potent and powerful and fabulous they are, that their power is infinitely lesser than the might of the British monarchy, as shown by the world's reaction to the Queen's death. And admittedly, a lot of it was for her character and her accomplishments as a head of state. But her character and accomplishments as a head of state are only a part of the picture. The whole picture was coloured very firmly and brightly by the prestige of the British monarchy. Let us see what happens. Will the publication of the book coincide with the coronation? The coronation presumably will be in May or June next year. Let's see when the book comes out. Hopefully Penguin isn't going to be quite as crass as Harry and Meghan have been and Oprah was. And Gayle King has been. T. Campbell says, all you have to do is see how she treats her family to know what kind of human she is. And you, my dear, don't even know half of it. The things she's done to her father and siblings, not to mention the things she's done to other people. I mean, I am not going to be blowing any whistles because it suits you in life to keep your counsel. Maturation points are a very important aspect of any development. Samantha's lawsuit, I know, is going to be a real hoolie. Some of the things that Meghan has done to her invalid sister and her invalid father, you wouldn't even do to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the peak of his powers. You just wouldn't. It's inhumane. One act of compassion at a time. Dollar bills, dollar bills, dollar bills. Norma Jeanette Vaughan says, Lady C, why are people not showing or talking about trained crier sitting in the pew refusing to stand when everyone, including the elderly, were standing? I'll tell you why I think it is. The candle was blocking the view of her. And there is an unstated understanding that the Queen and the royal family should be where the focus of the funeral was, and that Meghan's manipulations and attention-seeking conduct would be ignored as far as possible. Now, Meghan tried, I understand, in one or two ways to grasp as much attention as she reasonably could while pretending to be dignified. Remember the tear with the middle finger? What does that tell you? Does not that tell you F you? Is that what that tells you? She's doing an F you to the world with the, I can, give me 3 seconds and I can come up with one tear out of my left eye. F you. Well, that's the only thing that has got any attention that she, of the other antics. She tried with the walkabout. I was approached, and so were lots of other people, to, I'm trying to put this delicately. Oh, let me think how to put it. Speculation was rife that Meghan wanted the media to speculate that she was pregnant again. I mean, have you ever met anybody who's so fecund? I mean, Harry doesn't even look at her before. Oh, my goodness. Oh, goodness. Pregnant again. And I and everybody else I know studiously ignored that. That was one of the things. She sits down, so everybody's supposed to be commenting, oh, what's wrong with poor Megsy baby? You know, she was so weakened. Was it because she was pregnant again? I mean, even though she and Harry said they were only ever going to have 2. But she seems to get pregnant every week, and then loses them every other week. Although every now and then the stork brings a nice red-haired boy or girl. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. But as she's pregnant, maybe that was yet another ploy. But if it was ignored. And she was firmly kept in her place because everybody ignored her to the full extent that they could. And they interacted with her only to the extent that politesse required that they do. Oh dear, oh dear. Life's really tough when you're a hustler and you come across a 1,000-year-old institution that has dignity. Oh dear, oh dear. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in. You're absolutely fundamental to this process. Chatting with me needs you. God bless and goodbye.